Jewish ghettos. Jewish ghettos were segregated areas in European cities and towns where Jewish communities were confined, isolated, and subjected to harsh living conditions, persecution, and control by the authorities. The establishment of ghettos was a common practice throughout history, but became particularly prevalent during the Holocaust under Nazi rule. Ghettos have a long history in Europe, dating back to the Middle Ages, when the Jewish communities were often required to live in designated areas of the cities. These areas were often overcrowded, impoverished, and isolated from the rest of the population. Ghettos were often used as a means of social and spatial segregation, as well as control over the Jewish population. During the Holocaust, the Nazi regime established ghettos in occupied territories as part of the systematic persecution and genocide of the Jewish community. The ghettos served as temporary holding areas before the Jewish people were deported to concentration camps for extermination. The conditions in Nazi ghettos were deplorable, with limited food, sanitation, and medical care. Nazi ghettos were typically set up in densely populated urban areas and surrounded by walls, barbed wire, or fences to prevent escape. Jewish people were forcibly relocated to ghettos, often facing violence, confiscation of property, and separation from their families. The ghettos were governed by Jewish councils under the supervision of the German authorities. The living conditions in Nazi ghettos were dire, with severe overcrowding, inadequate housing, and limited access to food, water, and sanitation. Disease, malnutrition, and starvation were rampant in the ghettos, leading to high mortality rates among the inhabitants. Jewish communities in the ghettos were often forced to perform slave labour for the benefits of the Nazi war effort. They're subjected to gruelling work conditions, long hours, and brutal treatment by the Nazi overseers. The labour was often used to support the German military and industry. As part of the Nazis' final solution, the ghettos were gradually liquidated, and their inhabitants were deported to extermination camps for mass murder. The deportations were carried out in a systematic and brutal manner, with thousands of Jewish people transported to their deaths in gas chambers. Despite the overwhelming odds and harsh conditions, some inhabitants in the ghettos engaged in acts of resistance, defiance, and cultural preservation. Underground movements, clandestine schools, and religious practices were maintained in the face of oppression. Jewish ghettos serve as a tragic reminder of the horrors of the Holocaust and the inhumane treatment endured by millions of Jewish people under Nazi rule.